Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today's video is going to be mostly about the Path of Light. Now, I owe an apology to the community. I was hyping this up in the podcast and in my last video. I thought this was going to be very good, very interesting and unique for the community. Unfortunately, I got baited. Now, the community has asked me to reveal some of the things that I was hinting about in terms of stuff that I'd seen in the code. I'm not going to do that. Mainly because the information that I have isn't guaranteed. So I'll only ever put in my video stuff that I know for certain or with a reasonable level of confidence that it's going to be the way that they've described it to be. This stuff I sort of see in anecdotal information. I'd kind of translated what it meant, but it is not how I thought they were going to implement this event. So what is Path of Light? They have created effectively a new event, which is actually the same events we've always had. It is an artifact enhancement with a dungeon divers. They've also kind of changed it up a little bit, and they've made it so that instead of us hitting certain points or tournament points, event points, we now get a currency and we spend that currency how we choose. So you'll get points for basically upgrading artifacts and a point for basically getting artifacts. So pretty much the same thing we're used to with dungeon divers and artifact enhancement. Now, I don't really have a problem with this method of sort of coin acquisition. The problem I have with this event is it lacks imagination, and the implementation of it is effectively awful. It is terrible. It's worse than awful. It's terrible. It's really bad, and it's an absolute waste of resources to some extent. Now, I've got a segment after this on the math behind this event. We're going to deep dive in and have a look at sort of the cost of resource that it's going to take. But effectively, let's have a look at the resources here. So we've got 3 paths, and this can be effectively defined as sort of chickens, books and energy, and then shards and like silver. Now, I don't really get where someone basically values 3 brews at 350 Litecoins. That's just dumb. What are you gonna do with 3 brews? It's like 60,000 XP. That's like 2 campaign runs. I don't value this at all. This is really, really silly. 3 rarity up charms. Again, like you get 1 a day every so often on the free pack. You get like 5 normally on an event, but this isn't worth anything to many people. So I don't really think we can value this. We do get a bunch of gems. I'll give like a full list of everything you get in the math part of this video, but just as a summary, like the key things we're looking at here is, you know, you get a Void Shard, a Legendary Book, and a 5-star chicken. The big thing here that's different for me is the Legendary Book, and there is a 5-star speed glyph, but there's only 1. The rest of this is stuff we normally typically get. We typically get an epic book in an artifact enhancement or a dungeon divers. We will get an ancient shard or 2. There's often a rare book in there. There's often a 3-star chicken or a 4-star chicken. Core hammers are often in there. An energy refill or some energy is also in this. So we're not getting anything especially new. The main things that are new are this bottom row. We tend to sometimes get a void shard, but that is not always common. It can happen from time to time. The Legendary Book always shows up in a champion training event, but never in these 2 types of events. And the 5-star chickens can sometimes show up, but again, it's quite rare. It's normally a 4 or a 3-star. So that's the path. Now, I've gone down the middle path just because the key is slightly earlier, and then I'll probably open the other path. But I did this thinking, oh, well, I can earn things at the same time. But actually, because it's get coin, spend coin, it doesn't really matter effectively. Like, there's no point getting this key earlier than the other 2s. You just kind of pick a path you want. And I'm going to explain at the end of this video what I think most people should do with this event. But right now, I just want to really kind of drill into why I'm so disappointed with the way this event has been implemented. Firstly, what is the total reward of this event? So we can see here we've got some chickens. So you're going to get 2 3-star chickens, a 4-star and a 5-star chicken, 1 5-star speed glyph, 2 ancient shards. We're going to get 11 brews, 15 core hammers, 225 energy, but 1 refill, so that works out at 355 energy. 1 epic book. We're going to get some event keys that has no value, 85 gems, or some potions, a legendary book there as well, and then some other stuff too rare. 525,000 silver. When you see how much silver you need, this is going to be embarrassing, that as a reward. 1 void shard and some 3-day XP boosts. If you're a newer player, that XP boost might be useful, but if you're a serious clan versus clan, mid to late to end game, you're probably sitting on a substantial amount of XP boost anyway. I have 17 weeks myself, so 3 days extra is really nothing. So in comparison, let's have a look at kind of what a typical dungeon divers reward path would be. So this was the dungeon divers we had in the last fusion, so it's probably the most recent. We can see the point total is 4,500. That's going to be quite important when we look at the math later on in terms of comparing dungeon divers to this Path of Light. And we can see we're getting similar amounts of silver. We're getting a rare tome, ancient shard, epic book. We've got some chaos ore here. We don't get that in the hero's path, but you know, some people don't like that anyway, so that's just there. Obviously, one reward has been replaced by the champion. That would have been maybe gems or some energy or something of that nature. We're getting type charms, brews. So you can pretty much see the rewards that we're getting for the Path of Heroes or the Path of Light is pretty much the same reward cycle as what we got from Dungeon Divers, with the exception of those last row rewards where they're a little bit more of a sort of a higher tier. And by contrast, here's the artifact enhancement event. So obviously this Path of Light is a combination of both. So this is what you would get in a artifact enhancement. Again, epic book, ancient shard. We've got actually 350 energy here. Keeping in mind we only get 355 on the entirety of all three paths in the current Path of Light. Again, the rare would have been replaced with something else, but we're getting core hammers, rarity charms, potions. We get greater arcane. We don't get affinity, but there's a potion here, some brews, some gems. You're starting to see a pattern. It's almost like we copy pasted this from an artifact enhancement event and called it something else. So in terms of how much do we need to complete this event, I have sort of calculated this in Excel, brought it all out, and we now have basically 3 different paths. One path is more expensive than the other, but they're fairly close. There's not that much difference between the two. Path 1 is 17,950, Path 2 is 21,400, and Path 3 is 19,950, for a total of 59,300 light coins. That's how many we need to earn if you want to complete every single path. And most players, or you know, if you wanted to complete an event, that's what players want to do. If you only pick one path, obviously your cost is lower. So let's now take a look at how do these kind of Litecoin acquisitions compare to our normal Dungeon Divers and the normal silver cost of an artifact enhancement event. So let's compare Dungeon Divers. Right now what I've done here is I've pulled out the individual artifact odds that you would get if you pulled the artifact. So one thing to note here, I've seen a couple of other charts thrown around. These numbers here represent after you've done the roll for the ancient shard versus the artifact. So it's kind of like assuming you always get an artifact. So you might find your kind of the average Litecoins or average Litecoin per energy is like a little bit lower for other people's math. But for what I wanted to do here is in terms of just calculating sort of the Dungeon Divers versus the Light of Path event, this was just suitable enough. I mean, we're talking 0.2, 0.5, something like that difference in some of these Litecoin per runs. But effectively, these are the odds you get per dungeon. I've gone stage 16, 20, 24, and 25. At the top here, we have got the Litecoins you get per artifact. So you can see actually what's quite interesting. There's not that much difference between a 4 legendary and a 5 legendary, but it's quite a big difference between a 5 legendary and a 6 legendary. Now that might make you think that getting 6-star legendary is better for you. On the pure one individual roll it is, but in terms of where the best place to get 6-star legendary is, it's not the most efficient. So what I've done is I've taken that and then I've looked at the odds, sort of the average, how many Litecoins you would get per run. And it works out you tend to get 33 average Litecoins on stage 25, 32.7 on 24, 31.4 on 20, and 27.7 on 16. And this kind of makes sense, you know, 6-star legendary gives you the most amount of points. However, what we need to factor in obviously then is energy cost. And once you do that, you start realizing that stage 16 and 20, like normal Dungeon Divers, remains the best place. You'll get around about 2 Litecoins per energy on 16 and 20, 1.8 on 24, and 1.7 on 25. So what this basically means, typically, without being super specific, you can kind of say it's about 2 Litecoins per 1 energy that you use in a sort of on the Dungeon Divers aspect. So when we talk about artifact enhancement, obviously that's pretty much how much silver you've got. That's your cost and your resource requirement. I have got a table here which Senti has given to me, which he uses or has used in the past to calculate the average cost it would require you to upgrade artifacts from 0 to 4, 0 to 8, 0 to 12, 0 to 16. This takes in the roll probability and the odds of you actually getting that artifact. Obviously there's quite a large range of potential with this, especially if you're doing lots of artifacts. You could actually go really high or really low on the silver cost, just because if you get lucky and you upgrade that last one really quickly, you save a lot. But typically these are the averages, and I'm working this out based on an average silver cost. And then in terms of coins, we get for a 5-star to level 4, we get 5 points, 11 points, 90, and then a big 620 points. And then pretty much, you know, a little bit more for 6-star. So that basically means if we were to take a level 0 to level 16, you know, all the way up, it would be 726 for a 5-star and 960 for a 6-star. Obviously, you can see the big chunk comes by going 12 to 16, but you do get some 4 to 12, and obviously them being cheaper in silver costs, nothing to be dismissed in terms of going from 4 to 12 as well. That can add up. In terms of an artifact enhancement event, we have kind of a similar ratio, 2, 5, 40, 270. Again, you're starting to see how this new event has been modeled very, very similarly to an artifact enhancement event. It's almost like someone has copy and pasted an artifact enhancement event score table and just times it by 2. That's what it feels like. Maybe 2, 2.1, whatever rounding you want to do. But, you know, 3 to 7, 10 to 23, 65 to 150, 340 to 710. It's almost just double the points. So what we're basically saying here is you're going to get double the rewards. That sounds great, right? Does it actually mean you don't have to spend as much silver? No. And you're about to see something that's going to probably blow your mind a bit. When I looked at it, it was pretty offensive to my eyes. So this table is going to have a lot of numbers on it. So, you know, bear with me while I talk you through what I've calculated here. This chart assumes that you're going to do one or the other. Now, obviously, most people are not going to just do one or the other, but it's just helpful to analyze and assess the differences between each path. And you'll clearly see it doesn't really matter how you do the math. It still feels pretty bad to do this event. So first things we got here at the top left, I've got the path point costs and then all paths, so we can see the difference. The first column here, we are pretty much dealing with artifact enhancement first. That's what we're going to look at here first. What is this actually showing? It means path 1. If you want to completely do path 1, basically earn enough light coins through artifact enhancement, and you are doing a 0 to 16 upgrade path, so that's points at 4, 8, 12, and 16, you would need 25 5-star main gear. So that's not jewelry. Jewelry is more expensive to upgrade. That's why I've separated this out. If you want to do jewelry, it would be the same thing. So in terms of the number of artifacts, you're not getting any more light coins for doing jewelry over sort of your main 6 slots, but it will cost you more silver because jewelry is more expensive. When we look at 6-star, you would need 19 for path 1. And then, of course, path 2 and path 3 being more points, you'd need 22, 21. It works out 62 artifacts, give or take 1 or 2 rounding issues and all of that kind of stuff. When we translate that into the silver cost using the average silver that we just showed on the previous screen, that's somewhere in the region of 50 to 60 million per path for a total of 165 million silver. 165 million silver. Pretty much 166 if you round it up, if you want to be that specific, to get all of these rewards. Now keep it in mind, remember what I showed. If you haven't done it, scroll back a little bit in the video, look at the type of rewards you're getting and compare that with a typical artifact enhancement event. This is what we need to compare, what we get and what we were getting on the normal events. When we scroll across and we look at, say, 8 to 16 upgrades, so this is taking a level 8 to level 16. I don't know about you, but generally all my gear is level to 8 so that the optimizer can use those gears. You'd still need 25 and 19. That doesn't particularly change. You do notice now, though, that we need a little bit extra. In silver, we see it's kind of similar, you know, 49.5 for all 3 paths, 163. So we're still only, like, we've only saved 2 million silver for going 8 to 16. And then if we compare 12 to 16, you've got more pieces needed, but of course you can save some silver by not having to go to 0 to 12. So you're again saving 2 million silver. So now we're down to about 156.7 million. So how does that compare with artifact enhancement events? Now, typically the last artifact enhancement event was 7,000 points required, which means in order for us to complete that entirely, we need to upgrade either 22 5-stars or 17 6-stars from 0 to 16. Again, it's not too much dissimilar to the current path. I think that's not too bad. That's around about 44 million silver. Now, keep in mind, all 3 paths, when you look at all the reward tracks, it's effectively the same value as an artifact enhancement event on its own, but with a few extra additions, a legendary book, maybe an extra chicken, and maybe that void shard. So when I talk about a comparison between one artifact enhancement event, I'm actually wanting to compare that against all 3 paths, not just one path. Now, if we were to compare this just versus one path, we would think, okay, well, it's not too bad. It's still 11% more silver I have to invest for one path, but actually the comparable rewards is all three paths. So the actual cost increase is 268.86% more silver. That's the difference between these events. You're getting pretty much the same rewards, but you're having to spend 268% more silver than you would have on a typical artifact enhancement event. Now, how does that compare with sort of the 8 to 16 and the 12 to 16 market? I know a lot of players will get their artifacts prepped in advance of an artifact enhancement. It's probably not as important anymore due to the instant upgrade, but it still will happen. So let's just take a look at the difference. Well, it actually gets a little bit worse, if anything. It doesn't actually get any better. And if you look, you can see the numbers are almost carbon copy. They're almost consistent here. It's almost like we've gone, why don't we make the artifact enhancement cost 300% more so they burn their resources more? That's me being very cynical, but this is what the math is showing me. When we look at a 12 to 16 upgrade, we still need to upgrade 21 6-star and 26 5-star. That comes at a cost of around about 42 million in jewelry or 28 million in the main gear. So that still translates to 268 to 269% more silver than you would have. Now, just to note, I've probably been saying throughout this whole video 156. Obviously, if you don't do jewelry, you can save yourself 50 million silver. It will cost you still 100 million silver. An artifact enhancement normally costs you 28 million. This is where I'm saying this is a bit bad. This is why I don't like this event so far. 268% or 269.27% more silver to get probably the same rewards with an extra chicken, legendary book, and a void shard. Now, okay, the argument would be, well, you can do dungeon divers to get the same reward at the same time. Well, let's just look, if we were just doing dungeon divers alone, how much difference is dungeon divers event versus this path of light? Again, stage 16, 20, 24, and 25. These are the typical stages people will run depending on where they are in their game progression. I've got path 1, path 2, and path 3, and all paths listed here again. So in order for you to complete all paths and for you to gain all the light coins required, and if you only did dungeon divers, again, you might mix these up, but I'm just looking at these as one or the other. You would need to do 1,797 stage 25 runs, 2,144 stage 16 runs, and then it's about 1,800 to 1,920 or 24. This translates into, for stage 25, if you want to do all paths, you need to use 35,939 energy on average. Obviously, stage 20 and 16 is much more efficient. That's 30,000. So definitely, if all you're interested in is light coins, you should be running stage 20 or 16. So how does this compare to dungeon divers? So dungeon divers, I looked at that last one in the last fusion. It's typically around 4,000 to 4,500. They've known to do a bit of an extended dungeon divers at 6,000, but typically it's around about a 3-day event for 4,500 points. So you get 12.8 per run of a 25 stage, 12.7 for 24, 12.2 for 20, and 10.71 for stage 16. So that roughly translates, if you want to do a 4,500 point haul of dungeon divers, you need to run somewhere in the region of 351 events. At stage 25, you need to run about 420 stage 16, and then it's somewhere to 350, 368 for stage 20 and 24. Energy cost wise, this is 7,000 energy in total to get your 4,500 dungeon divers points. Let me just check this. That also translates to about 5,884 at stage 16, 5,900 at stage 20, and 6,377 at stage 24. We all know that stage 20 is better for dungeon divers and event points and tournament points than anything else. 24 and 25 is if you want the gear, and 25 if you want 6-star legendary. So how does this compare? Well, this is already at path, just one path, 55% more energy than doing an entire dungeon divers. Now, if you wanted to complete all 3 paths by doing just dungeon divers alone, that is 410 and 411% more energy usage to get these 3 paths completed through just dungeon divers. This is probably the 3rd time I've said this. The dungeon divers individual reward is about the same value with a legendary book and a sort of a 5-star chicken as just all 3 paths together. So they're asking you to spend 400% more energy to get what you would get in one single Dungeon Divers event. It's not a good event in terms of what they're asking you to do. So I've run about 580 energy in Ice Golem. I had some for my daily login, and you can see that's got me about 990 light coins. So I can basically go and get 50 energy and 3 brews for 580 energy. It feels pretty bad, I'll be honest. Now, the reason why I was initially excited about the Path of Light is because my understanding was it was going to be more of a seasonal overarching event. What I was expecting was a Path of Light module section, a bit like we get the Forge Pass, where you got normal events, you completed those events, and then you got light coins, and then you could work your way down the path. It was like a 3-week kind of event. And then you would basically get to the bottom, and then there would be some exclusive rewards. Maybe when you completed all 3, you got some sort of special outcome that wasn't in the game anywhere else, and it was unique to this particular event. I did see some other stuff in there which I thought was going to excite people, but I'm not going to, I don't want to say anything about it because I don't even know if it's true, and I don't want to be giving information out that is wrong. This is not what we want. This is awful, lazy event direction. This is effectively taking 2 things we already have, putting a new currency on top of it and making it look like it's new to make us use resources in the middle of a fusion cycle that we don't want to really spend to get not a lot more. I'm not against using resources if I get something for those resources, but you're asking me to commit several 100% more of my resources to basically get what I would normally get in a Dungeon Divers, or what I would normally get in a Artifact Enhancement. You know, yes, we're getting a Legendary Tome. Awesome. We get 1 star speed glyph. 1. I got 1 earlier in Faction Wars. I got more glyphs from one of my Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss runs earlier than I get through the entire 30 paths. I got more daily energy from just doing my quests than I got from this path. XP boost not valuable. 15 greater arcane potions. I can run 2 potion keeps and probably get that many. 85 gems is nice. 15 core hammers is not terrible. But yeah, I mean, this is not good. This is not good. This is a really bad event in my opinion. I think it's a bait event, and I think it's terrible that we've basically rehashed the same thing into a different event and then called it a brand new thing when it's actually just a glorified Artifact Enhancement and a glorified Dungeon Divers event. So whilst I was recording this, they announced the info on how you're going to be able to get the Trunder skins. Now, we've been talking about this in HH Game this morning about, you know, we're going to have to complete multiple tournaments. The way it was described in the sort of news article we got over the weekend in game basically made it sound like it was going to be a multi-event, multi-step thing to acquire one of these skins. And typically they've made the sort of epic variant of the skin a sort of an acquisition in game for free, and then the legendary has always been paid for. Now, we haven't had another legendary sold yet until you know, we only had the Arbiter one, so it'll be interesting to see what the pricing is of the Fire Trunder. But we have now got a schedule, and this to me is another I was already in a pretty disappointed mood. This has just kind of really stuck the nail in the coffin for me in terms of why have they done this. So we've got a Summer Splash, and we've got phases towards getting a champion skin. I don't know why we need phases, but we have phases. So we've got Summer Splash. Phase 1, we're going to have 3 events, and it's going to give you skin fragments. So think of this as like a fusion just to get a champion skin, because it's essentially what it is. But it's worse than a fusion because you actually don't know the information up front. So what are we going to get? Phase 1 runs from June the 27th to June the 6th. So that starts today, runs until July the 6th. So that's the end of the week or next week. So you're going to need to get 20 from Summon Rush, 15 from Dungeon Divers, and 15 for Champion Training. Now remember, you've just used 411% more energy in Dungeon Divers to just get this Path of Light done. And I'm pretty sure this starts after the Path of Light finishes. So you've already burnt all those resources. So, you know, that's a problem. But this is only 50 fragments. So, okay, well, what do we have to do to get the other 50? Well, we don't know. Because there's phase 2 and they haven't given us the schedule for phase 2. That's going to happen sometime in July. But you can, if you want to, at the end of phase 1, buy 50 more fragments. But why would I buy 50 more fragments when I can earn 50 more fragments in phase 2? But you haven't told me what I need to do to get phase 2. This doesn't make any sense. Why are we doing this? If people want to buy a skin, I have no problem. Put it on offer. If people want to earn the skin, I have no problem. Make it cost something in the game resources. Don't go down this path of like, it feels just a bit dodgy that you give me half the information and offering me to buy the rest. Then I'm going to get another half of the information, but then I can still buy the rest even after the second half has come through as well. It doesn't make sense to me. It's really confusing. The other thing I'm really interested to know is, are they going to come in batches of 10, or is it just going to be 50 fragments for a fixed fee? Because that would be quite difficult. If I do all of these 50 events, these 50 fragments here, and then I just want 20 more from the, because I don't want to do a phase 2 event, am I going to have to be buying 50, or will I just get 20? Now, they're pretty smart when it comes to these, especially with champions. They tend to offer you the amount of fragments you need left. So I hope they do the same thing. But as we don't even know what's in phase 2, it's quite difficult for me to know what the plan is. So overall, this hasn't really warmed me to the summer splash that we're having right now. It feels almost like a summer splash in your wallet and try and get as much out of you before the next fusion. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the whole point of this thing is. I don't want to be any more negative than I already have been. It's pretty depressing for me today. I was really looking forward to this. I thought we were going to get something new and unique and exciting and exclusive, and we just got recycled content effectively. The good news is we have got a gift coming apparently, and we also have some promo codes, so maybe there's something interesting in there, and maybe we'll get some exclusive pack offers for people who do like to spend a little bit that gives them high value in their spending, like we got with some of the anniversary offers. They were pretty good, some of them. Now obviously if you're free to play, you're going to look at this and go, wow, this is a lot of resources. My advice to people who are playing this mode or want to do this path: pick the path where you want to get to the end and forget about it. If you manage to acquire enough tokens to get there, great. If not, you've missed out on a void shard and a legendary book. It's not the end of the world. You could go and do a champion training event and get another legendary book. You can easily make, for the amount of energy it's going to cost you to get this 5-star chicken, you can just go and make a 5-star incubus. You can just farm it in campaign. The energy requirement of path 1 is not worth a 5-star chicken when you can make it yourself. And this is only one void shard. It is not the be all and end all if you don't get it. In fact, I can go and get a void shard if I want to from 3v3 for a very pretty price of 15,000 gold bars if I'm in silver. How I would have done this if I approached it, I don't mind the path system. I think it's great. I wouldn't have tied it in as an individual event. I would have put it as a 3-week seasonal type event. I would have put normal events on at the same time where you got light coins in addition to event points. So this was always on top of a normal reward. I would have encouraged people to complete all 3 paths by offering a bonus completion zone below here. If you complete all 3 paths, gain access to exclusive content. Maybe you give people an avatar, maybe you give people a champion potentially, maybe you give people more shards, maybe you give people double the last row. Basically give an incentive to actually burn all those resources rather than what you have now, which is just a glorified artifact enhancement and dungeon divers. It's not great, and it's a really disappointing thing that we're getting all this exclusive, you know, hype about a new summer splash, and really all we're getting is the same old Joe. Anyway, that's me. I'm not going to complain anymore. Hopefully the next things we get are an improvement, and I will of course bring anything we get in 5.7 to you. I've probably got a champion guide coming up on Tyre that I'm currently working out some clan boss shenanigans on. But until then, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are going for the hero's path, I'd love to know why. Put it in the comments below, and I will of course be checking them all at the end of the video. And I'll catch you in the next video.